Thanks so much, everyone, for coming along to this meeting of the Third Sector Mental Health Forum today. We've got something a little bit different planned today. So you might not be aware, but this year marks 15 years since the Third Sector Mental Health Forum was first started. I think that's incredible that it's gone on for so long. I think it's incredible to see it's doing so well and so many people coming along and attending regularly. So I thought we'd do something a bit different, just have a bit of a reflective session today, looking back at the history of the forum, seeing where it's gotten to now and just looking at what's maybe to come as well. And then we'll maybe have a little celebration at the end. I have got birthday cake for the forum as well, so there will be cake going around at the end. So for those of you that don't know Ruth is my predecessor. She was formerly the Mental Health Network Coordinator before I was, and Ruth started this forum 15 years ago. So we'll get into our questions. So thinking back to the early days of the forum, what was the original vision behind setting up the Third Sector Mental Health Forum 15 years ago?
Well, I think there were different visions. The service run by DVVA was commissioned by the City Council at the time because it was prior to the creation of the Health and Social Care Partnership. And what the council wanted was, I think, not to have to go around all the third sector organisations and speak to everybody individually. I think what they wanted was a group of people that they could access through myself whenever they wanted to know something.
So almost that gateway to the third sector.
Yeah. My vision for it was a little bit more fundamental than that, actually, and in some ways quite different. I think I wanted to, well, I was saying earlier, I started working here in 2009, and it was 2011 till we got the forum off the ground. So that shows you that it took 2 years, actually, to get anything together, because it was supposed to be one of the main purposes of my job. But when I first came here, I realised that the third sector in relation to mental health was very disparate. It was unconnected. It was certainly not there was no coordinated voice of the third sector. There was no channel for or conduit for third sector organisations to come together and reach a consensus or discuss issues and feed those up to.
So about having that collective voice for the third sector as well.
Yeah, so collective voice. And also, in fact, there was a lot of competition at that time between third sector organisations. I don't know if that's still a thing.
So I suppose that segues nicely into my next question, which was, what was the landscape like for third sector mental health organisations at that time?
It was kind of barren. I mean, there were a lot of organisations around, ranging from small self-help groups. There was one in particular called Rebound that was a community group supporting people who had been experiencing self-harm. That was my first introduction to what I'd call proper peer support within within the sector. And then at the other end of the scale, you would have the big four. So you'd have Penumbra and Sandwich. They were kind of in competition, unnecessarily so. But the fact that we didn't have a space to share kind of magnified that, I think.
Thinking back now to the very first meeting, do you remember the first meeting of the forum, and do you remember who was there or what was discussed?
I actually don't remember it. I don't
15 years ago.
I don't remember it specifically, but I remember a lot of the individuals I was in conversation with at the time. So I met Mary here from Dias today, and it was 2 top people at Dias before Mary. And the woman, I don't know if she's still alive, this woman, and I'll not name her in case anyone does know her, but she was a fearsome person. I don't know, you'll probably know Mary. I was absolutely scared stupid of her. But she was a person who was like a really strong advocate for advocacy and for the third sector. But she also kind of got people's backs up. Right. So I do remember in the early days, it wasn't a piece of work I looked forward to because I'd get there and be like, oh man, I'm supposed to be bringing people together and all they're doing is talking about their differences and, you know, not arguing in public, of course, because that would be really impolite, but like getting wee snipes in. And what I would speak about, we spoke for a long time, not just at the first meeting, but throughout that early setup about whether it was actually a good idea to have a third sector forum or whether folk were kind of really suspicious of the paymasters. Mm-hmm. So they were a bit worried about whether they were walking into a trap because they knew the council wanted a third sector forum and they knew DVA wanted a third sector forum, but they weren't very sure whether it could achieve what they would like it to achieve or whether it was kind of they were walking into a trap really that was going to put them in a box where they would be contained and potentially stifled, I suppose.
So it sounds like there were some challenges at the start as well, and that brings me to this question actually. In those early years, what were some of the biggest challenges in getting the forum off the ground?
I think it was trust was a really big issue. Relationships were really challenging. They would have been the biggest things. Of course, funding is a constant challenge, and where organisations felt their funding was vulnerable at any time, that would kind of send the whole plate spinning again.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably an ongoing.
Were funding challenges
thing.
Almost a barrier to collaboration at points?
Well, they were because there was competition. So if something came up, if it became known that a service or support was about to be commissioned, there would be a lot of anxiety around that because a number of local organisations might think that they were going to be competing against each other for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we do see a much bigger emphasis on partnership working now, which maybe allays some of that.
Yeah. Well, good. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah. So at what point did you start to feel that the forum was gaining momentum?
I think, I was thinking about this. It's been quite it's a wave. It's not a natural, progression. But sadly, in 2010, I think, there was a suicide cluster in Dundee. A group of young men, a number of young men, took their own lives. And it was the third sector organisations that were able to say, we can move into this space. Yeah. And they got together. It was coordinated, I think, through a national programme, but they were able to get on board with a national programme to create the Suicide Help app. I don't know if you still...
I'm familiar with it.
If you still use that, yeah. And get into spaces that were about, I'll call it training, and it probably is still called training, but actually it was just about opening up conversations about mental health and suicide and giving people confidence to talk to their friends, young people. And I felt like the third sector was really showing its strength there, because in statutory services, while of course they want to support suicide prevention and so on, there's always that little barrier of formality. And in the third sector, in which I particularly include community sector, those barriers are not so much there. So there was a really fertile ground to start to develop suicide prevention work. And the Third Sector Forum, because we were all able to share, and also because we were able to, amongst ourselves, have members from this forum going to other arenas to, I say represent, but I use the word loosely, but to connect the third sector with some of the initiatives that were going on. It felt like we had a concrete purpose instead of just an idea about what would the third sector do, what would it be, la la. This was something that really galvanised people.
Yeah, it's like a space for collective action, just a platform for change as well, it feels like.
Yeah.
Were there any key turning points or milestones from that time that stand out to you?
Yeah, quite a few. Well, one of them was there was the national mental health policy called Towards a Mentally Flourishing Scotland. It was the first time that recognition of well-being and mental health were seen in a broadly, in the same playing field, that they were part of the same thing. So that was really significant because a lot of the third sector organisations that were active at the time were doing things like, the old, what's now Wellbeing Works, or I presume it's still Wellbeing Works, was at the time Dundee Association for Mental Health. And the people who used to go there had been in the mental health system for a really long time, and they would go there for things like arts and crafts, music, what you might think hobby-based activities that we might, there's a well-being component. Everybody's well-being benefits from those kind of activities, but they were. That was a service that I don't think they were commissioned at the time, but it was a service that was dominant in Dundee. So if you didn't have, if you were leaving a hospital service, for instance, and there was no clear pathway, that would be the kind of place you would go. And Towards the Mentally Flourishing Scotland really put a spotlight on the fact that you can have good well-being and have a mental illness at the same time. And you can be completely well and have very poor well-being at the same time. So these kind of places on that graph created an awareness, I think, of the link between well-being and mental health, and that actually mental wellness is for everyone. It's not just about people that have been locked away in institutions for years or have to have a crisis, a section, or anything like that. So
and that's interesting to reflect on as well, because I feel like now mental health and well-being are almost a package. It's rare to hear mental health without the well-being following it up. So it's just interesting seeing how that's come to the public awareness as well and become quite embedded.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a lag with those things, but at that time, folk were very much speaking about, the old Maggie Thatcher care in the community and how that was, those words meant something totally different to what you would hope they would mean. So historically, I think we've come a long way. So that was one of the things. Other things I noted about that was I had a personal nightmare in the job at one point. I can't actually remember what year it was, but there was a number of third sector organisations working in different aspects of carer support, so support for unpaid carers. I can't remember who they all were, but one of the contracts was up for tender, and a couple of the managers of the carer services said to me, "Hey, it would be a good idea through the forum if we just got together and thought about, well, what should that contract look like? What is still needed in relation to carers? What's being provided and so on?" So we got together and had a meeting about it and came up with some good ideas. noticed what was being done well, what wasn't working so well, what might benefit the city in terms of carer support. And we happily sent off the note of this meeting to the commissioners. They went ballistic. Man, I thought I was going to get my books. It was really horrendous. There was tears all around because they said I had compromised the commissioning process.
Wow,
Now,
so you
wait a
ruffled some
minute.
feathers there.
So these days we would call that strategic commissioning, where we all get together and discuss what's being, what needs are being well met. Wow, didn't like that at all. I don't know what year that would have been.
That collective feedback from a diversity of third sector organisations would be a really welcome thing when it comes to planning services.
Well, I really hope that's the case now, but in those days it certainly wasn't. It was. Yeah.
It sounds like we've made a lot of progress from the sounds of it. Sounds like we've made a lot of progress.
And then we did some good examples of that. A few years later, we did a co-design of the Short Breaks programme. The Short Breaks programme for people with mental health challenges used to be a caravan in a field, and you bid in for a wee break in this caravan. So hell mend you if you don't like a caravan holiday, really.
Not much choice there, is there?
There was really no choice. Or you could go to this kind of respite facility that was, I think, still a little bit hospital-like, and it gave your unpaid carers a break. So going through a process where we completely ripped that up and said, well, what do people actually want? They want to be able to choose what kind of break they have. They want to be able to choose if they take the person they care for with them or not. It might just be that they want a really good night out, or they might indeed want to go to a caravan in a field, who knows. But
that element of choice is really important.
Yeah, at the time that I left, they basically said they wanted to do, they drew up a budget for it, and then they provided the receipts and you gave them the money. And you could give them the money in advance as well. And that was all done through a co-design process that took a couple of years. And and when we did that, folks said, yeah, this is a good start to strategic commissioning. We should do all our work like this. Dong. I was like, well, a few years ago, when you wanted carer support, but hey.
Yeah, but when they see it working, they start to come around. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So how do you think the forum's helped shape the local mental health and wellbeing landscape?
I would say, I don't know if you'd agree with me, Mary, but I would say overall massively, because one of the biggest things that came out of the forum was making recovery real, which was the peer support work that we did in collaboration with Scottish Recovery Network. And alongside the short breaks work and other sort of tests of change, ways of doing things, that was a real corner turned, because in all our kind of stodgy, if I'm honest, discussions about what is recovery, what is peer working, and it's good to still have those conversations, but I was champing at the bit to make something happen. But anyway, making recovery real, we went into partnership with Scottish Recovery Network, and we, as a result of that, the agreement across partners, which included the council and the Health and Social Care Partnership, the statutory providers and the third sector organisations, because of this forum, was that going forward, developments should be recovery focused. They should be person centred. They should, the balance should always be tipped in favour of people with lived and living experience of mental health challenges. So we can all have different views, but unless we've had or are having those experiences ourselves, we need to give way, give priority to and weighting to those opinions. And we need to accept that everybody's equal in decision making, which is a difficult thing to accept, especially if you feel that someone's lording it over you with the chance of pulling your funding out from underneath. But we all have something to bring in relation to support and recovery, and we're not, the only weighting we're going to give is to people with lived experience. So that really changed, as well as what that brought to the party in terms of provision and in terms of support for people with mental health challenges. It changed the way we thought about things, because when council departments or health departments or a third sector organisation thought, yeah, wait, we don't have this, let's go away and look at that, they were reminded, well, we're going to first of all check that out with people. Is this something they want? Is this something they can buy into? Is this something they can contribute to as an equal, not as a bottom of the pile patient, or
So really that idea of making decisions with people rather than for them. Yeah.
And also with people being involved in creating and delivering the solutions. So we were trying to, it was a part of the process towards changing the culture away from the kind of models of medical and social support that previously people were accustomed to using. And if you look at realistic medicine, which has been around for a while now, I think one of the things we notice is we go to the doctor and we say, oh, I've got a rash on my leg or whatever, and the doctor says, oh yeah, that looks like such and such. Does that sound true to you? What kind of treatment? Well, if I were to prescribe you this cream and these tablets or something, would you be confident that would be something that was going to cure it? So some people find that frustrating. They're like, wait a minute, you're the doctor. You're meant to tell me what's wrong with me and what you're going to do about making it better. No, that's not medicine these days. That's not health. So it shifts the balance towards including people, not handing the responsibility to them, saying, hey, you're mentally ill? Well, that's your own fault. You shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z. But saying, okay, you're experiencing these things. I'm here to support you. Here's what I can bring. What can you bring?
Yep, so there's that mutuality in there as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there has been a huge shift in how we deal with mental health, and just to think that the forum's played a part in that in Dundee as well.
Yeah.
It's so exciting.
Because in third sector organisations, I know it's less so now, but traditionally there was in the third sector, especially community sector, but voluntary sector as well, a lot more time just to dialogue with people, and not be, it's not like come in, sit down, tell me what's wrong, get a plan of action, move out. It's a proper relationship. And so the third sector forum, that's always the thing that's most important about it, is the relationships amongst yourselves and with the other people that you engage with. And at the end of the day, it's actually not any more complicated than that. It just feels like it sometimes.
I think one of the great things about the forum has been the relationships that have formed at it as well, and the partnerships that have been made. And just having people in the third sector knowing one another and knowing who they can refer to as well.
Yeah.
It's been a great strength. What's some of the feedback that you heard from organisations who attended over the years? Does any come to mind?
A lot of people just couldn't fit it in because they had so many other meetings to go to. Yeah. Because one of the things that happened was with the creation of the Third Sector Forum, that was now the piece in the jigsaw that the statutory partners and the Health and Social Care Partnership in particular wanted in place. So that piece of jigsaw is in place. So now they want, and they've accepted that they want voices of lived experience to be the most amplified voices. So that's your job, by the way, third sector people, because we don't have time to speak to people
it's
so much.
The story, is it?
But also it meant that it wasn't just on a day-to-day basis with people with mental health challenges. It wasn't just about their care and treatment and support. It was about the long-term vision of how care and treatment and support should develop. So it was about long-term strategy. So there were all kinds of arenas people could get involved in. Like, there's the main one being the mental health strategic planning group. but also there was a suicide prevention one, and I don't know, can't even remember what they all were. But it meant that for some people, it was a real challenge to balance maintaining awareness of all these things and being influential in them, while at the same time keeping a foot on the ground and a very close hand on the pulse of what was happening day to day.
Yeah, I know that's one thing third sector organisations struggle with, is just finding the time to engage with all these things as well, because the day job is so busy as well a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Thinking back now on the change that we've seen in the third sector mental health forum and just the third sector, how have you seen the third sector mental health space evolve over the last 15 years? What are some of the standout differences?
I feel like there was just there was quite a big growth in confidence with that shift in balance towards voices of lived experience and third sector partners. That helped grow a confidence where third sector partners didn't have to feel like also ran, didn't have to feel like they always had the begging bowl out, but they were legitimate and really important. And actually, over time, you've seen that apart from in healthcare, in all other aspects of care and support, and actually even treatment sometimes, the third sector is where that happens. So we've gone from, see, I said we there, I'm not even in it. Well, I am in the third
You can
sector.
say we,
but not
yep,
this.
absolutely, shared mission.
So the third sector providers and participants became essential rather than nice to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's important as well, because the third sector does so much of the heavy lifting in the mental health space, and I think so much innovation happens in the third sector as well, because we're not constrained by the same sort of rules and norms that statutory services are as well. So I think it's just good to see the sector getting that recognition for all it does as well. So how does it feel to see how the forum's grown and developed since your time in the role?
Well, it's actually been 3 years since I retired, so
Yeah.
I hope you're going from strength to strength. But where things were at was one of the triggers that made me retire early. In particular, the development of Hope Point, because Hope Point initiative was co-produced. It grew out of the concern for suicide prevention. It grew out of concern for distress and difficulties that people were having day to day on all kinds of levels, and the recognition that a lot of time was being taken up in services and supports by people bouncing about from A to B in terrible states of distress at all times of the day and night. Unnecessarily, actually, because, again, at the end of the day, if someone that they could relate to could just sit down with them and just listen.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think there was a huge need for that sort of 24/7 access as well. So it's good that we've got that now at least.
Yeah.
So thinking now of some sort of more personal reflections, what did chairing the forum mean to you personally?
I made some great friendships. I mentioned earlier it was rocky. There were ups and downs. There was tears, blood, and snot. And some of the forum members were people who were there for me constantly. Particularly Mary from Dias and Tom Garnett. I don't know if anybody remembers Tom. He was a big cuddly bear from Dundee Association for Mental Health. And there were people who came on the journey with me, and I went on the journey with them. So personally, the forum and members of the forum sustained me throughout throughout that period. And now that I've left work, sometimes I'll look back on it and think, man, what on earth was all that about? The drama. Oh, the dramas. What? Why?
It is really interesting chairing this forum as well, I must say. But yeah, one of the things I love most about it is just the people you meet, the diversity of charities that come through, all these niche charities with such amazing missions, and it feels like such a blessing just to be in such close contact to them as well, and seeing all the missions they do and getting them all under one roof as well.
And you're in a hugely privileged position, because whenever someone says to you, mental health services are rubbish in Dundee, you're like, actually.
That's something I hate to hear. There's no support in Dundee.
I'm sorry that's
There's
how
so
you feel,
many
but
charities.
have you tried? And you start to rattle it off, and you're like, you know what, there's a place for everyone.
Yeah. There is actually so much happening in Dundee. What are you most proud of from your time running the forum?
That shift in balance of power.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bringing it closer to the third sector.
It seemed so far away, and by the time I left, it didn't, and it was all down to investment in relationships that everybody in the forum was prepared to take, and everyone took the risk. We had to suspend the mistrust and get to and genuinely engage with each other on a human level, and make that the strongest thread running through everything, and gradually things start to sort out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and what do you think has contributed most to the forum's continuing success?
People making the right choices. Everyone in the job's got dead difficult choices about where they put their energy, where they put their attention, and had it not been for everyone suspending their cynicism, mistrust, concern, and taking that risk to come together and follow that vision of lived experience first, recovery focused, trauma informed, all those key things, just like keep coming back to those things and go, right, what does that mean for me today?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think the strength of the forum is the people that come to it as well.
Today, does that mean for me, little picture, Johnny needs a cup of tea, or does that mean actually today I can afford to think big picture and dip into a dialogue about what's coming next along the line that we can be part of?
Yeah, and it can be hard with that balancing act as well, but it's important. So just looking to the future now, what advice would you give to those continuing to lead and shape the forum moving forward?
Throw everything into it and then retire early.
Take notes, Salad. That's what I'll be doing.
Yeah, it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of persistence, and it takes a lot of optimism that sometimes people will tell you is misplaced. It's not misplaced. It is energy draining. So be kind to yourself while you're doing it, and at the end of the day, you'll have good stuff to look back on and go, you know what, I was part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I
made that happen.
I'll move on to one more question now, then I'll open it to the room if there's any questions. But what would you hope to see from the forum in the next 10 to 15 years? It's a big question.
It's a big question, and I don't know what the big shifts are. That I no longer know what big shifts need to happen. But I would think what will always be important will just be being welcoming to new ideas, retaining some creativity, sharing ideas with each other, and continuing to dream about what things would be like in an ideal world, because things do change over time, and it's up to us to make them change in the direction we want them to change in.
It's up to us to be the change we want to see in the world.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a great place to draw the Q&A from me to a close, but do we have any more questions from the audience for Ruth?
Over time, the forum got a little bit more formal, and I don't know if you still adhere to the terms of reference for the group, but there are the terms of reference for the group that were agreed a few years back were about being part of that voice for the third sector, about committing to learning about the mental health environment, about committing to working together, to sharing, to honestly representing if you were called upon to do that. So I think that was a although you could say things like that are kind of tedious and bureaucratic, I think that brought a renewed clarity to the forum. And when I was working, and I would never go more than once to a meeting. I didn't know what was about, what was trying to achieve, because I just didn't have the time for it. So I think having that clarity of purpose about why you come together, what it is you're trying to do, and the fact that it is written into a contract that, that's great to hear the relationships have got better, but actually this is a proper thing. This is as proper a thing as a hospital is, or a day centre or whatever. This is a really important part of the picture, and it's recognised by partners as that. So use that power, because that power is given to you. I'm not up to speed with where the gaps are anymore, but what I do know is there's not much room for growth or serious change in a short time scale in statutory services. So the third sector is the place where innovation can happen, and it's always good to try new ways of doing things. And at the point that I left, there were usually ways where you could get little pots of money for a test of change. So if there was something you wanted to do differently, I can't remember what any of them were called, to be honest, but there was quite often money given to the intermediary organisations like DVVA that they could then give out in grants to community groups and third sector organisations. And these are a good way of trying out a test of change if there's something you want to do differently or more of, or monitor differently. And then that creates for you the evidence of whether your idea did or didn't work, and then it gives you more traction to draw down funding. And because you're connected through the Third Sector Forum into the strategic planning and commissioning arenas, you've then got an avenue to feed that experience into, and that can give them an idea about whether they'd like to do things differently. And this is exactly the pattern established by Making Recovery Real, which I appreciate probably you don't know what I'm talking about, but basically the first time that we started to do properly invest time and money in peer recovery in mental health in Dundee, that we tried some things, and ultimately the commissioning forum said, that's sounding good. That is something we want to invest in. And much to our surprise, and I was at the table at the time, when the link officers for the funding asked the chair, when will we start the commissioning process for peer recovery support? She said, Mary, I think you were there. She said, "Oh no, we're not going to do that. We're going to give the money to DVVA, and they'll give it to the organisations that are best placed." And I don't know if you've got a peer worker yet, Mary. Have you? No, not yet. But yeah, you'll remember that day. We came out going, yes. What was it? 80,000, just like that.
Score.
And on that day, 4 different organisations, or 5 actually, counting ourselves, got more money to invest in peer recovery. And peer workers were recruited in SAMH, in Wellbeing Works, in Penumbra. Can't remember what the other one was. And yeah, that was that then gave us another 2 years to build up more experience, to have more evidence, to secure ongoing investment. So it's a slow build. It's a slow build, but that is how the change happens.
Thank you so much for that. Do we have any final questions for Ruth? Yep.
I think a lot of that's to do with that the old idea I was referring to about healthcare. When people say, some family member had a mental health problem, I took them to the doctor, and the doctor either gave them pills or didn't give them anything, or put them on a wait list or whatever, and the person expects that to cure their mental health problems. And we all know that is, if you're lucky, that'll do a little bit. If you're unlucky, it'll make it even worse, because at the end of the day, people need that all-round care and support. But I think a lot of people are not interested in hearing about all that care, all that all-round care and support. They want to take a pill and make it go away. And unfortunately, I think that is quite a dominant idea in our culture still. But it's an idea we can help change. By highlighting the impact of particularly community and third sector organisations on mental health and well-being, we can start to change that culture.
Yeah, just to add my own thoughts in there, it's a really good question, and I think the key word there was around perceptions. So, like, I know through working with the third sector and at the forum, there's such a plurality of different niche charities offering things like art support, neurodivergent support, drama therapy. There's such a wide range. I think the issue is that there's so many good services, particularly in the third sector, that can help people, and there's so many people that would benefit from that help, and it's just joining those dots so that the people know the services exist and services know how to reach them. So I think there's a lot of good things in Dundee, and people just don't know about it. So now when I'm speaking with friends and they say, "Oh, there's no support in Dundee, is there?" I'll be saying, "Actually, have you heard about this charity? Have you heard about this charity?" So I think it is just, this is why the forum's so important. It's about raising the collective profile of the sector and all the charities that form part of it. I hope that answers the question a bit. And I think that is one of the strengths of the forum as well. Just having people know people is a really powerful thing.
Yeah, because for well-being, people need to know their niche. They need to find their niche. But often in that stage of illness, or coming out of that stage of illness, even people don't know. They've lost touch with their feelings. They've lost, they don't know what would make them feel better actually. And they need support and encouragement to try different things. And it's a big ask. It's a big ask of people who are mentally fragile to do that. But again, there are places that will hold their hand to go along. So it's not even that is not a thing they'll have to do on their own.
It makes me really happy to see statutory services coming at the forum as well. We've got representatives from NHS and the council and the job centre, and just having the space not just be for the third sector, but for people that want to access and learn about the third sector as well. So it's really made my heart soar to see the range of services that come that aren't necessarily third sector as well. And then the last forum we had, when we had the GP lead, Dr. Frank Weber, coming as well, it felt like we were getting the ball rolling on these really important conversations too. So I'm really hoping there'll be a lot more of that to come in the future. If there's no more questions now, I just want to finish things off with a big thank you to Ruth for coming in today and for sharing all those experiences. And I think a round of applause as well.